Hello everybody in YouTube land and welcome to another video here at Playing Board Games. As always, I'm Justin and today I got another deck tech for you that I'm pretty excited about. I'll be honest, the Dunwich Investigators they gave me a little bit of a tough time in this one for the series, but this Rex deck actually fell into place pretty quickly. Rex, I've built a lot of Rex decks, a lot of them, and with this one I took an approach that I've never done before, building around Abigail Foreman and secret slinging. So I think this one's pretty sweet and I'm excited to share it with you today. The goal of this deck is pretty simple. We're just basically going to use Rex's ability to gain an advantage over the game while also drawing cards. Just basically like doing the things that Rex likes to do while also still winning the game. Notably that this deck actually also translates very well into Daisy, which I think is pretty fair because this is kind of like a Daisy core that I'm translating into Rex. But the thing is that Rex is going to, well, he doesn't get the same action compression that Daisy's going to get from it. He is going to get more clues in the long term out of it. So this is kind of like a transition from Daisy to Rex. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. However, you know that you can, there's nothing against having to do that. It's just because it's more optimal in one investigator doesn't mean you also can't try out a similar thing in Rex. So we're using secrets to on our tomes to swap them in and out of play as much as possible, slinging our tomes like a madman and having a great time doing it. The expansions that you need for this set are kind of they're kind of all over the place, as they always are for this series. If there's ever a video where I don't say that, it's going to be a pretty boring deck tech, I'll tell you that much right now. Notably, there is one card that we're going to have two copies in our deck that are from the Return to the Forgotten Age, but these are really easy to proxy by using the level 0 version. Alright, here is our level 0 deck. As always, I don't like to spend too long crunching the numbers here on the level 0. I do have an upgrade path that I'll be talking about when the time comes, but we're going to worry about that like when the time comes, when we get to upgrades. Let's check out the final version of the deck where we see everything come together and start to see it all come into place. So, as I said, this deck is going to be building around Abigail Foreman, and we're going to talk about all these cards in greater detail in a few moments, but she's kind of like the meat and potatoes of the deck, while also using Grim Memoir. Let's go into those first cards right here, and also Scroll of Prophecies is along for the ride. So, again, I want you to remember Daisy, I want you to respect Daisy, but we are removing Daisy from the situation for this one, because the reality is that Rex Murphy often gets put into a very boring box. And I love it. I love his boring box, but in this series, my goal is to try to build decks that I would play that are not the usual decks that I would bring to an investigator. If this is your first time watching one of these in the series, hi, that's what this is all about. I've done it now with a lot of investigators. This has been a lot of them. But that's kind of the hope for this. So remember Daisy. We love Daisy, but even though Daisy can do a lot of this better, we're also looking to see what Rex can do with these little things as well. Abigail Foreman. While she isn't here to help us sling any tomes, she represents a key piece in our deck, allowing for multiple activations of Grim Memoir and Scroll of Prophecies. Additionally, she gives us an extra hand slot, giving us a swapping between giving us a quick swapping between empty tomes that we want to refill and tomes that we are actively looking at using. Grim Memoir is the key tome in our deck, which is really nice because it's also there at level 0. Grim Memoir is a really cool card that I think while you can still use in Daisy, a lot of people end up going for Old Book of Lore, which makes sense. Old Book of Lore is really good in Daisy. It's been good since level, like, the core set, when it first came out so many moons ago. And it's good today in the current days as well. So, like, while Grim Memoir is nice in Daisy, it's kind of funny. Like, with Grim Memoir in Daisy, you're like, I'm Rex. And then with Rex, with Grim Memoir and Abigail Foreman, it's kind of like, I'm Daisy. So the two are kind of like shaking hands, trying to make, like, the whole thing really fly here as they're working together. It's kind of like, it's kind of the idea that I think that, like, Old Book of Lore would be too much like Daisy, and I think Grim Memoir also, it gives Rex that +2 ability for his, like, for triggering his ability. Rex's ability, if you don't know, is very good and has been tabooed to only trigger once per turn, thank God, if you are playing with the taboo list. If you aren't, it can get multiple clues. Like, it's crazy. But the reason why I like this build here, in Rex Murphy is because the +2 Grim Memoir allows us to have a better chance of hitting our ability while also drawing cards. You could also look for the splash cards. We're going to talk about the splash cards as we get there. That it could also be like you could bring in a lucky cigarette case. That's something that Bryn did with Rex, and you could just like become like a draw machine, which I think is a really cool idea that you could explore. Notably, we also have Scroll of Prophecies here, which I actually also really like on Abigail Foreman to just draw a bunch of cards. It's kind of like one of those things, like you pick the poison. If you need to get a bunch of clues, you're going to be using Grim Memoir in Abigail. If you want to draw a bunch of cards and you want to like refill your Scroll of Prophecies, you're going to want to use that on Abigail. So it's kind of like one of those things that we're not just like setting an old book of lore on Abigail Foreman, which is a really powerful thing to do, but it's not what we're doing in this deck, so we can kind of like be hot swapping our tomes around a little bit. These are the tomes that are going to matter for this, but we're going to have some other tomes in our deck that we can help facilitate our tome slinging, which let's talk about. Library Docent. This is the card that allows us to do our tome slinging. The gameplay loop with her should be relatively obvious. We pick up our empty Grimoire Memoir, Scroll of Prophecies, Scroll of Secrets, or even our Schaffner's Catalog. Excuse me, which I did not include here, but it is an option that we can also be doing some to pick up, and then we can play one that we didn't put into our hand, reducing its cost by 2. So while it's really only reducing its cost by 1, because like Library Docent does cost 1, it is still one of those things that this is a very nice action compression, because, you know, you're getting some soak out, you're refilling something, and then you're able to like just go nuts with it. We have a lot of great options, right? I already said Grim Memoir, Scroll of Prophecy, Scroll of Secrets. These are things that are really, really nice. Research Librarian is here to help us find our tomes faster and be another call-in and favors target, which we are going to also be talking about later in this video. But the thing that's most important is we want to find Abigail Foreman. So while like we might not be like we might be doing some tome slinging before we get there in the form of like or like tome searching with research librarian or tome slinging with library docent, we are on the constant hunt for Abigail Foreman because having her in play will allow us to do the real fun stuff with our decks, and that's like getting just like that extra value on this kind of stuff. And we are a secret deck as well, so like while library docent is one of our ways to refill our tomes, it is not the only way we have to refill our tomes. Of course, we also have a Miskatonic Archaeology funding because it's going to allow us to play all of these allies at once, which is very nice. Rounding off our tomes, so we have Scroll of Secrets and Schaffner's. Both of these use secrets and are optimal to replay when empty, or you know mostly empty in the case of Schaffner's because you can't actually have an empty Schaffner's in play. When it's out of uses, it's discarded. But these are really nice as options to either pick up or put into play with Library Docent, right? Because the reality is that the card I think we're most likely to pick up is either Scroll of Secrets or Grim Memoir, right? Those are the cards that we're looking to most likely be picking up with Library Docent. The reason for that is that they are the easiest to use and we get the most value out of using them, right? So it's one of those things that they're the ones we're going to be most likely picking up. So we're most likely going to be putting down either the opposite or Schaffner's or a Scroll of Prophecies, right? So these are all things that you want to consider for what your targets are for your Library Docent. Scroll of Secrets is an amazing card value, allowing you potentially to discard weaknesses, which is really nice for Rex's Curse, because Rex's Curse is a very annoying weakness. Don't be afraid as well to put cards on top, because like even if it means that you're just seeing a card, like you're drawing a card that you already saw, like obviously you take one into your hand, you discard one, you put one on the top. Even though that's like one of those things that it might feel a bit strange to draw a card that you already saw, even if it was a little bit minor. It means that you're not going to be drawing your weakness, which means that you might be able to hit it with Scroll of Secrets in the future. It's just like, it's kind of like a thing that it's like pushing it down means that you're less likely to draw it, and is a nice thing that you can do. One thing, there's two things to keep in mind that is a little bit unfortunate about Scroll of Secrets. Unless you're playing with the taboo list, this is not an action. So Abigail Foreman does not synergize with it. If you are playing with the taboo list, it's kind of like you're like exchanging a big boost in power for Rex for a downgrade with Scroll of Secrets power. However, if that is the case, Scroll of Secrets does work with Abigail Foreman, so that is something nice that you can consider. Also, this won't trigger Astounding Revelation because you are not searching, you're looking, so big difference there. You also notice that we might not have a lot of economy cards in our deck besides Schaffner's and Astounding Revelation. This is by design, and it might be a little tight. It might be. So if you are worried, change it up. I would probably run this deck as is, considering I did build it. But if it is, if you are concerned about the economy, you can look at burning the midnight oils, crack the cases, even emergency caches to just help you get over that hump. Just something if you are concerned, you can do that kind of thing. Keeping this going, we got some secret ways to refill secrets. I did say we had some other plans for this, more than just tome slinging with the Docent. We also have Secret Edition. So, Astounding Revelation has a large variety of search effects to trigger off of. Research Librarian, Calling in Favors, Practice Makes Perfect. So we can choose between secrets and economy depending on what is needed in the moment. Like Astounding Revelation, to put a secret on our Grim Memoir may feel a little bit poopy. It might feel a little bit poopy. But you have to keep in mind that if you don't need the resources, what that basically means is you get another use of grabbing 2 clues and drawing a card with Rex Murphy. It's very likely that that is going to trigger. Truth from Fiction and Enraptured are both easy ways to refill our assets with secrets. Enraptured is a nice hit off Practice Makes Perfect, but admittedly we actually have a lot of good hits on Practice Makes Perfect, as most Practice Makes Perfect decks do. So something just like, you can hit for it, it would be really nice to get, but it's one of those things that there's going to be some other hits that are even juicier as they show up. But being able to use multiple versions, like multiple plays of Enraptured, is a really nice thing. Truth and Fiction, I actually really enjoy this card. Yes, you need to clue your location to get like the 3 secrets out of it, but even just having its cost from the level 0 version is really nice. Notably, this is the card that is in the Return to the Forgotten Age, so you need to proxy it if you do not own it, but maybe, just maybe, we can like charge up all of our energy together and get these cards reprinted in some sort of format. Please, FFG, that would be huge. All right, keeping it going, we have some cards that we previously mentioned. These are both search triggers for Astounding Revelation, and they also provide nice value. Our main target to hit with Calling in Favors is Library Docent because it gives us the most value. However, don't be afraid to also pick up a Research Librarian in an effort to find your Abigail Foreman, or even if you need to find another tome. It's not terrible to play another Research Librarian in the future. She will give a huge boost to the power of our deck when she's in play, and the resource reduction in playing her is also really nice. So, if you don't know why our main target is the Library Docent, it's because Library Docent has a really good interplay ability, and like you could even actually consider Hit and Run, a card from, I think, Edge of the Earth, or no, maybe Scarlet Keys, I think it was Scarlet Keys, that we can use to pick up, like we could put an ally into play and then they turn to your hand at the end of the turn. Another thing when it comes to looking at our splash cards, because you might have noticed that our splash cards are actually all purple. And even now while I'm making this, I'm like, yeah, you know what, this looks like a lot like a Daisy deck in places, but again, we're respecting Daisy, we're acknowledging Daisy probably does this better, but we are taking advantage of Abigail Foreman in a way that, while Daisy can, it's hard for me personally to look beyond a double old book of lore trigger, so that's kind of the thought process behind it. Practice Makes Perfect has a lot of practice skills to hit. We're going to be talking about them in the future. Let's get to them actually right now in tandem with Practice Makes Perfect here. Again, Practice Makes Perfect and Calling in Favors do trigger the Astounding Revelation, which is really nice, especially on a reshuffle, which we will be reshuffling quite a bit probably with this deck. We do have a good jam-packed amount of draw. All right, what a nice bunch of practice skills, huh? Don't these just look great? So, I personally looking at in this kind of order for pick. I look at personally grabbing Deduction just because more clues is nice. Then Perception. This would switch depending, of course, on the location you are investigating, the rest of your turn makeup, and how many cards you have in hand. But in a vacuum, if I had 5 cards in hand and there were like 2 clues on a location, or 3 clues on a location because I'm Rex frickin' Murphy, I would grab the Deduction. And like if it was flipped, I would grab the Perception. Then I would grab the Enraptured and then the Analysis in kind of that kind of order. Obviously, you won't always want to hit all 4, but this is the no context power ranking for all of these skills. On their own, they are stellar pieces in making your deck stronger and consistent, so don't be afraid to use them before you lose them, even though you're probably unlikely to lose them. But again, this is a Justin deck as well, so it is a little bit light on Mythos mitigation. So again, adapt accordingly. You might want to like, where am I looking at the places to do this? That's a question that unfortunately I cannot answer because that kind of comes into more of your own personal play style and how you want to handle things. But as I always say in this series, this is a skeleton for you to build your own meat onto and decide what you like, what you don't like, and all that jazz. All right, easy. If I have 1 XP, I know what I'm buying. Beyond 29 XP, I look at grabbing some copies of Studious. I'm boring, but there'll be a huge boost to this deck's consistency. We love Death 13. What's our last splash card? Have I forgotten it already? Or already at the upgrades? What is our last splash card? We had 2 Enraptured, 2 Scroll of... Oh, it's no, because we had one... We had 1 Scroll of Prophecies. That's the Schaffner's catalog. That was the other one. I was like, well, Daisy can't do Schaffner's, and Schaffner's is a huge piece of this deck. Sorry, we talked about Schaffner's in great detail when it was on the page, but I just slipped it. Because we have 1 Scroll of Prophecy, 2 Schaffner's, 2 Enraptured, I'm pretty sure. Let's just take a little peek. Look at that, I'm a genius. And I didn't mess up the slide this time like I did with Zoe. Anyway, let's talk about the upgrade order. As always, adjust to how you find the deck performs and fill any gaps as needed, adjusting also based on your own preference and playstyle. I do these things in batches because it's kind of hard to know, unless you're building around a card in particular, it's kind of hard to know what is the most important piece to put in first. I will say that this deck's really lucky because Grim Memoir is enough to get you going, and also because it's Rex Murphy, you're also going to get going a little bit. Because we don't have magnifying glasses in this deck, you might want to consider, instead of the Scroll Secret 0, putting in magnifying glasses to start, because you're unlikely to want to be holding multiple books at once. And Abigail Formon, as I typed her name incorrectly here on this page, she's... The Light of Abigail Formon instead of Forgamon. You get it. It's an ARKHAM joke. But like, grab the magnifying glasses if you want to like get the clues quicker. That's a modification you can make. However, our first thing we're doing is we're putting in Abigail Formon, and then like the next batch we're looking at upgrading our Scroll of Secrets, or getting our library docents into play and getting the Miskatonic funding. And again, like say you get like 6 experience, it's not crazy to do like Abigail, and then like you can grab like your Death and a library docent. Like again, I think that upgrading should be malleable, right? Like, it's better if you are adapting your deck to what is best for your experience as to following a rigid design and upgrade path. I feel like that's more accurate for how ARKHAM is as a whole. So this is kind of the upgrade path you could follow, but again, adjust as needed. So yeah, here's the deck. It's very tight. It's very tight on card spaces. Like you could obviously like remove the Practice Makes Perfect, remove the Astounding Revelations even. Like you go down to like a 1 of Astounding Revelation with the Research Librarian, use that to just find that 1 Astounding Rev, get some value out of it, make your Research Librarian free, yada yada. But I think what's also like, if you're gonna make these changes, you like probably want to remove Conan Favors, like cut down on the practice skills. Again, this is all like, again, do as you will with it. This is just an idea that you can follow. But this is my rendition of a tome-slinging secret Rex Murphy deck that I actually had a lot of fun building, and I'm excited to bring into a game day in the near future, which is, I'm going to think, pretty sweet. All right, Rex Murphy's in the book. That means in the next 2 weeks, right between Christmas and New Year's, we got Jenny Barnes. I had a hard time building a Jenny deck, but we did settle on one pretty sweet with the support of... not really the support, but the inspiration of a deck creator on ArkhamDB, which was really nice. I want to thank you guys so much for your support on this series. You have been very kind in your comments to say how much you've been liking these deck techs. I have, like, they're tough for me to record these videos. I have a hard time building decks that like are outside of my comfort zone. So I'm hoping that you have been enjoying the decks here and have been at least been inspired to try stuff like it. I don't expect people to copy my lists 1 for 1, but if you do, honestly, high five. And if you change it to, honestly, high five. So we'll see you all for Jenny Barnes. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate all of our patrons, and I really appreciate you, Jim, for watching. Thank you so much. We'll see you very soon for another video. Have a great one. And as always, GG's.